So nice to see so many folks. Give it one more minute, Sarah, and then we can start and I'll pass it on to you. So I'll give it 2:03 or yeah, 2:03, and then I'll start the meeting. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us today for this presentation by Sarah Lipton, who is the program director for, and I forget every time I say it, so I'm gonna, Money
Money follows
Follows
the
the
person.
Person. Thank you. I was like, let me make sure I keep this up on the screen because the idea of the program's in my mind, but never the name. Um, but I will pass it on to her. She's going to give us a great presentation with a PowerPoint explaining the ins and outs and insights of this program. I just thought it'd be a really great opportunity for members to get to hear it across the state. And I feel like it's also just really timely information given all the things that we've been dealing with this past summer. So I will pass it over to you, Sarah. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. It is really lovely to be with you. I recognize quite a few of you from both my current world and my former world. My former world was director at the Montpelier Senior Activity Center at slash co-chair of the Washington County Hunger Council. So for those of you that I know from there, hello. It's great to see you. I've been in this role now for next week, actually, will be a year. Quite thrilled to be running Money Follows the Person for the state. I do have a PowerPoint. I don't love PowerPoints personally because I feel like I'd rather see your faces, but I know that it's visually sometimes a helpful thing for others. So I will uh, load that up and then chat at you, but I really would like to chat with you. So, anytime you have a question or comment, just let me know, okay? Quickly, just curious, I don't know how to see hands up actually, but I was kind of curious if there was a hands up of anyone that had heard of Money Follows the Person before. Couple people. Okay, nice. So, for most of you, um, this is a program that is federally funded through the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. It's been in Vermont for about, I think since 2011. I can't count, so I think that's 13 years. And we exist through the state, we exist within DALE, the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living, in the Adult Services Division, because our program, Money Follows the Person, um, it serves to support folks who are on Choices for Care long-term Medicaid to return back to the community. So this is for folks who've been in a long-term care facility, whether a nursing home or an acute care hospital or some combination of the two, and they've self-identified that they want to return back to the community. So I'll dig into more of that in a moment, but just to give you more of a large overview, since I'm here from Dale from the state, I thought I could share a couple other quick updates. I'm sure a lot of you who are working in the case management world are aware that there's a conflict of interest case management. Changes are happening. Um, I'm so sorry. I give me 2 seconds. I'm sorry. I have someone at my door. Come on in and do the work. I'm doing a presentation. Thanks. My smoke alarm was beeping all night. It was terrible. They're here to fix it. It's great. Um, so so the conflict of interest case management changes are happening now. The full rollout of changes won't really land until 2025, but for those of you that exist in the sphere of working with whether it's the Council on Aging in your region or home health and hospice in your region, you might be aware that there's a lot of change happening. So just to put that on your radar, and to have a lot of empathy and compassion for the case managers in your world, who are probably going through a lot of changes right now. So that's ongoing. We are also forever ongoing with quality performance measures work in the background. I don't have a lot to say about that, but it is a pretty interesting process and something that I think is good to know is happening. Of course, we are always in the midst of which new database are we going to be working with? So we've got that kind of work going on. The State Unit on Aging. I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you saw recently, another million was secured through the legislature for Meals on Wheels. So that's really good news for our food security world. And of course, the SUA is also just ongoing determining what other policies and practices. So this would be a good one if any of you are engaged in the meals or food security world for older adults, want to make sure that you're plugging in with your Council on Aging, with the State Unit on Aging. There's all kinds of work going on there, really good work happening. Vermont also was just recently picked to join the State Peer Learning Collaborative. This is a national group that's looking at direct care workforce. So again, I don't know how much of this connects into the world that you live in, but it's all kind of happening and it's all really important because part of what we're doing at the state level is looking around the state at what are the barriers? What are the gaps of service? Where is there a challenge for our folks? And obviously food, hunger is a huge one of those, but there's other sort of tangential and often connected issues too. So just wanted to give you sort of the sense that we're looking at these things. And there's a lot of work happening around them. And Money Follows the Person is doing a lot of that, and I will now tell you all about it. So, as I said, we are a demonstration grant, which basically just means the feds said, hey, here's some money, go try it out, show us the data, prove that it works, and we'll keep giving you money. And that's basically what we've been doing in Vermont since 2011. It keeps proving itself. When you support, and I know that you know this from the food security world, but when you support folks who need access to resources with the care, concern, coordination of resources, structural support, maybe even some financial support, people do well. They do better. So that's what MFP, Money Follows the Person, is all about. As I mentioned, specifically, we're focused on supporting folks with the transition back to the community from those long-term care facilities. And so there's a lot of ways that we can help people. Just for a little more context of our history, and then I'm going to pause for a minute after I finish this slide to see if there's questions. We launched in 2011. And in 2014, after looking at all those barriers and seeing what's missing in the community and noticing there are not enough homes and there's not enough 24/7 care, the adult family care home model was built. So that came up out of the Money Follows the Person program and is still a program that exists. You may be familiar or not, I'm not sure, but with this model, it's a beautiful model. It requires folks who have space in their home to also be willing to be trained as a care provider. And so they actually match people. And by they, I mean the designated agencies that run these shared living provider networks. So that's an ongoing thing that exists. To date, we've actually transitioned 686 participants back home to the community through our program, which is a pretty great number. In 2021, we received a $5 million grant from CMS, our federal funder, as a capacity building grant for us to be able to really get in that space of designing sustainable, impactful models and templates of service in the home and community-based services sector. So HCBS is just home and community-based services. Your work all lives in that world of HCBS because you're looking at how do people ideally thrive where they live? Are they able to access food? Do they have transportation? Do they have housing? Do they have case management resources? Do they have socialization and wellness? So prior to my being in this role, the former director, two directors, I think, took that $5 million and looked at all those gaps of service and said, okay, what can we do? And so you'll see in the coming slides the 11 contracts that were launched to help develop these initiatives across the state. So I manage that now. We're getting ready to launch a 12th contract, actually. And ultimately, our whole thing is about designing innovative solutions for the home and community-based services. So I'm going to pause there just for a moment and stop sharing so I can see your faces if there's any to see. And see, do you have any questions so far? Is this at all interesting to you? Does this actually connect to your world? Oh, I'm seeing head nods. Oh, that's great. Any questions coming up right now before I dig a little deeper? Because I hate webinars that are just people talking at you. It's really boring. So please don't be shy.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Honor from Hunger
Yeah,
Free Vermont. Yeah,
great to see you.
it's so great to see you in this role. I'm really excited to be here today, and thank you for making the time for us. And this may very well already be happening through all of the other supports that are provided by the folks in this process. But of course, my thinking about connecting people with food programs is buzzing around in my head and thinking
Yeah.
about when folks are, being transitioned out, to a home where they've got somebody providing care for them or what have you, are those families, or that individual person being connected with Three Squares Vermont and all those sorts of things? Or is there, and more to the point, is there a way that Hunger Free Vermont can connect with you to be of service with any of that? So this might be too early in your presentation to answer that, or too much in the weeds of a question, but
Not at all. It's actually why I'm here today. Because I had reached out to Lachelle a month or two ago. I was like, Lachelle, I need your brain. Because we actually have another line of funding. This is the crazy thing from going from a nonprofit world to this. It's like kind of blows my brain how much funding there is now. So I have a pocket of funding that's labeled supplemental funding through this program for specifically for our MFP participants to support their transition regarding food security, transportation, and housing. So I do want to talk with you and at large, all of you, because I think there may be, and Carrie, I see you. Hi, Carrie. Carrie and I are talking about the housing side of things too. I think there may be some way to organize, whether it's preloaded EBT cards that we send someone home with at that point of discharge, whether it's making sure a commodity food box is delivered to their door, whether it's, I think there's a wide variety. I'm also in conversation with folks at VPTA, which stands for Vermont Public Transit Authority, and VTrans about transportation for grocery rides, because I don't know if you're familiar, but Medicaid pays for rides on buses to appointments, but not food.
we're
So I'm working on
painfully
that
we're
as
painfully
well.
aware. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So I don't have a lot of funding. I only have $15,000 in the budget right now, and that's to share across 60 plus different participants right now. But my thinking is let's start a seed program now. Again, unfortunately, this is not all Vermonters. This is just this tiny little fraction of people that we serve through Money Follows the Person, but that could be anybody really who's going home on Choices for Care long-term Medicaid, so an older adult or an adult with disabilities. So let's start a seed program where we're able to ensure that they're going home to a pantry full of food, that they've got the EBT card that they need, they've got the rides that they need, and obviously Meals on Wheels if applicable. A lot of that is going to come through the support that comes from their case manager. So we're also getting in on the ground floor of the conversation around training because there's such a huge transition happening in the case management world. There are regions where the VNA or home health case managers are literally picking up their caseloads and just moving over to the Council on Aging. So there's some of that is happening where it'll be somewhat seamless for participants or people. But there's also a lot, other AAAs, the area agencies on aging, that are having to really like boost their case management cadre of people. So yes, in short, yes, there's a lot for us to talk about.
Great.
Thank you for that question, and I'm always happy to talk about those things. So, any other questions, or should I go back to the slides? They're burning questions. No? Okay. All right. I will share again. Right. Did that work? Okay. Okay. So, oh, here we are. Our little staff. We're a very small staff. We're getting ready to hopefully hire a communications coordinator position as well to fill out our ranks a little bit more. We've got a couple of interns starting with us soon, but this is us as it is right now. We've got Deb Courier and Sarah Crane are our transition coordinators. So they are both RNs in the field, and their work is very specifically participant focused. So imagine you have someone who's in a hospital or long-term care facility, and they're coming up to being in that facility for either way over 60 days or up to 60 days. And the referral comes in, and it comes to our transition coordinators, essentially. And they then pick up the case and start working with the participant, with the discharge planner at the facility, with the case manager, with the participant's friends or family, to really assess what that person is going to need for a successful discharge. The referrals have to come into our program prior to discharge. We can't take them afterwards, because then we can't support them in that transition. Once that referral comes in, we do all the eligibility checking, which our staff, so I'm in the middle, obviously, but then on the two right-hand staff on this picture, Katie Kenworthy is our quality and data specialist, and Ashley Johnson's our senior planner data scientist. The two of them handle a lot of that eligibility checking. There's a lot of databases to look at, a lot of different, SAMs, if you're familiar with it, a lot of different pieces that go into eligibility. But once that's been determined and someone can be enrolled, they then are eligible to receive $2,500, up to $2,500 for the 365 days the year that they are enrolled in the program. And that can be used. So goes to your question as well, Lenore. That can be used for food in the pantry if that's what's needed. It could be used for a security deposit on an apartment. It could be used for a stair, like a chair glider up to get upstairs, or a ramp to get in the house, or a wheelchair, or a Sarah lift. Maybe they need help getting in and out of bed. Maybe they need a wider door. Sky is a little bit the limit. I mean, this is one of these weird programs where, yes, we are Medicaid, entirely Medicaid dollars, but here we have a lot of flexibility. And I wanted to share just a couple of little stories. Again, I'm going to see your faces, so I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. So we have a huge list of things that people could access if they need it. All they have to do is ask. And three funny little stories. One, someone last summer who had been in a facility for a very long time and was finally able to return home, desperately wanted to sit on their back porch. And they used some of their funds for a bug zapper so they could feel comfortable sitting on their back porch. I mean, how cool is that, right? So that's a weird example. Another really sweet example, this is such a Vermont story. A gentleman had come home in a wheelchair, had not been in a wheelchair before, loved hunting, desperately wanted to be out there and hunting his turkeys, and was able to gather his community together with our funding, to build a wheelchair accessible hay wagon into a hunting blind, and went out and shot some turkeys for Thanksgiving last year. It's like such a Vermont story. Another person also came home in a wheelchair, really loves nature, loves the forest, lives way up in the mountains somewhere, and can't get out there. It's in a wheelchair. And so we were able to get him a drone so he could go out and take pictures of the forest. So these are the unconventional versions of what's needed. Most often it's food in the pantry, or a repair to the car so they can get to the grocery store, or, home modifications. And just to add to this, it's not just the $2,500 / we know that that's not enough. I mean, that used to maybe be enough in 2011. We're working on a petition to try and get more funding for that transition fund amount. But these are all folks who are on Choices for Care long-term Medicaid. And so there's also a line in there that's called the ADHM funds. It's the assistive device and home modification. That's $2,000. So combine that with MFP, there's now $4,500 basically available to someone to assist them in getting what they need. But add to that, there's also the Vermont Center for Independent Living, VCIO, has funds available for home modifications. Add to that, assistive technology through the state has accessibility to any kind of assistive device someone might need. So there's a lot of ways that we can help someone really navigate what exactly they need for a really successful transition. And when we say successful, we mean they're not bouncing right back into the facility, that they're really truly going home and being part of the community that they want to be in. So that's the little transition funds spiel. Okay, share my, there we go. Back, here we go. So we do is a lot, it's a lot of different work that we do. Just to give you a little bit of the faces, these are some of our faces, some of our MFP participants over the years. We are hoping for 50 transitions this year. Our goal, true goal is 58. We're hoping to at least get 50. We've already had 11 people graduate this year, and we've had 31 transitions so far this year. So we're kind of like right on target as far as where we're at in the year. We have 30 ongoing participants. Those are the folks that transitioned already, and our transition coordinators call every month and are checking in on them. And as you can see, there's a lot of different stories that go with MFP. Every story is unique. So the process really, and this is where any of you that have a connection to whether it's your primary care provider in your community or case managers, or if you engage with anyone in the care coordination world at a hospital or a long-term care facility, there's a wide variety of places that a referral can come from. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. We just need to make sure that we're getting those referrals early and often, because again, I think, oh, I forget the percentage, so I'm not really a math person. There's a proven percentage of how much better, how much more successful people are when they get an early referral. And again, if you think about it, it's that point where, sorry, I just have to gesticulate and see your faces. Yeah, sorry. It's more dynamic, right? Keep you on your toes. So if you think about someone who's been in a facility for a long time with whatever preconditions they have, with whatever morbidities they might have, whatever struggles they might be facing, or lacks they might have, if you can actually surround them with the resources before making that usually pretty scary transition, they are successful. That's the demonstration that MFP is proving over and over again. So referrals are really the key. That's the foot in the door. How to make a referral, I will share this. And Lachelle, I'll send you this PowerPoint and also the links and everything afterwards to share out. But how to make a referral is really simple. It's a one-page referral form. We're currently updating it, but I'll send the current version. It's really easy. It just gets emailed or faxed to our secure email box that we share. And basically, our team then takes it from there. Again, basic eligibility, which you don't have to figure out, or you don't have to tell your people to figure out, but just so you know, is 60 days, at least 60 days, consecutive days in a facility. Again, that can be back and forth between a hospital and a nursing home. That they're going home on Choices for Care long-term Medicaid. At the point of the referral, they don't have to be on Choices for Care. They just have to be pending. So for those of you that know what that means, they don't have to be all the way affirmed yet. We know it's a process and it takes time, but that the third piece is that they have an approved home to go home to. And so what that means is that they are going to an adult family care home, an AFC home. They're going back to their own home or apartment, or they're going to, maybe it's an apartment or a home of a friend or a family member. And we just need sort of like, not a financial verification of a lease, but just sort of a written statement that this person is, accepts coming into this space. Unfortunately, we can't serve folks that don't have a home because they're not stable enough. There's not really anything we can do, but, and Carrie knows this, and Adam too, I think I saw you on the call, our field directors, we can help work through the process of helping them find a home. Not that we have all the answers or solutions, but the transition coordinators, in part, their work is to help support the navigation of that process. So that's a really key point. Any questions so far? Should I continue? Also, Lachelle, when am I done? When do you need me to be done by?
You said you 30, 45 minutes is
Okay,
fine.
great. Okay.
30 minutes because I know you wanted to give time for
Yeah.
questions, so anywhere in
Okay.
that realm is fine.
Okay. Are there any questions right now? Okay. Hope I'm not just putting you to sleep. Okay. So, referrals. Yeah. And then just to, this is really also the really fun part. So our capacity building grants that we launched with that extra $5 million of funding have been all over the place and doing really, really interesting work. And I'd be really curious to hear, sure, some of you have intersections with all of these different things. So we have a number of contracts with our two of our AAAs, our councils on aging. So Age Well, we have they launched a program where they really created this beautiful training program for respite volunteers. So if you think about folks that are homebound, getting support, the people that are giving that support need a break. So there need to be respite volunteers that can come in and support the recipient with a little care. And so what AgeWell has done is created this really beautiful training around how to do respite work. And they're working right now on expanding that across the whole state. So that's a beautiful thing. They even like won a national award last year for the the work that they've created. AgeWell has also launched with one of our contracts the Capable Falls program, which is also a national program, a very beautiful program that creates accessibility for participants to an RN who comes and checks on you once a month in your home, an occupational therapist who comes in and assesses your home to make sure that it's safe for you. And if it's not, there's a handy person as part of the program who will go in and actually do the repairs. And I don't know about you, but I live in central Vermont and all across this state, there are never enough handy persons to go and do the work. So this program is a really beautiful thing. And we know that AgeWell, they're in their second year of doing this program. It's going really well. And we also know they're not going to be able to continue running it after this. And so we're working within Dale to see if we can actually create this as a statewide program using those aforementioned ADHM funds, the accessible assistive device and home modification funds. So stay tuned. I'm really hoping to announce that we are creating a statewide capable program because it really, talk about numbers and data. There's a ton of national data out of Johns Hopkins University that shows the efficacy of this program. And obviously combined with capable is always Meals on Wheels. You know, it's for older adults who are aging in place. And so making sure they have Meals on Wheels and making sure that, you know, they can the delivery person can get upstairs that might have otherwise been broken, but now they've been fixed. There's just a lot of embedded goodness in that program. NEKCOA, Northeast Kingdom Council on Aging, has been expanding volunteer supports primarily in the form of technology support. So they've created a little program called Tech for Today, where they have a volunteer who's training people in their home on whatever device they need help with. You know, literally just like, how do you turn on your phone, to as complex as how do you join a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or whatever thing they need. And that's really going very well. And they're working closely with assistive technology at the state to make sure that there's coordination there as well. So really happy about that. Howard Mental Health in Chittenden County. It's a huge mental health agency. They took on a contract with us that's really focused on building a team-based care model for folks who are aging in place, looking at how to make sure there's engagement, there's mental health and wellness, that there's that sort of emotional level of wellness. Let me back up for a second to say again, all these contracts came forth from the observation of where are the barriers, where are the gaps, where are the places where people are not getting enough support. There's a lot of support in a lot of different places in this tiny little state, but are they all connected? And the answer is often no. And so a lot of the work that we do with MFP is bridge building and breaking down silos and making sure that these wide array of supports, home and community-based supports, are connected to each other. So anyway, just to say that, give this a little context. We're also working with Hireability Vermont, which is through Dale, actually is an internal contract essentially, on scholarships for direct care workforce folks. So this is a good one for you to know. If you know of anyone in your world who has been in a direct care workforce type position for 12 months, they are eligible to apply for up to $5,000 each person for support to get more training, get an LN, get a, move towards their RN, whatever thingy is kind of next for them. There's funding up to $5,000 per person to support them. And this is really building in the attempt to build in more incentives for this huge body of work that we desperately need in our state. We need more people who are doing that caregiving work. That's really hard to do. And there's now funding available through MFP's money to help support that. We also have an MOU, essentially a contract with Assistive Technology, which is embedded within Hireability, and they're really focused. Anybody heard of Assistive Tech? It's an amazing program. They support folks with access to a million different kinds of assistive devices. Another MFP story. There was a person who went into the hospital kind of basically okay, but one small problem turned into a bunch of other problems, came home visually impaired. They now have, because of our funding and because of the work that Assistive Technology does, this amazing device called the OrCam, and it sits on your glasses. It's like a little video, I don't know how to describe it, device, and it narrates. You turn your head, it narrates whatever is in its visual field. So this MFP participant now is able to look around, quote unquote, the space and see what's there. The big joke was they looked down and realized, wait, it's saying the rug is green to their AFC provider. And the AFC provider's like, yeah. And the participant was like, why didn't you ever tell me that? Well, didn't really need to come up before. But anyway, assistive technology is a pretty amazing thing, and it's widely accessible, and most people don't know about it yet. So we're working to that. The next two are the same, but at two different locations and are hugely important. Brattleboro Hospital and the Southwestern Medical Center down in Bennington have both created a complex care discharge planning specialist role to create a really comprehensive, collaborative approach to discharge planning. So this is where I think a lot about food security, by the way, because this is that connection point between sending someone just sort of like, okay, knee jerk, sending you back discharge out into the community, but no access to resources lined up. This is, no, we're going to pause. We're going to look and assess at all the needs this person might have and pre-refer. So this is where Meals on Wheels comes in, because we're making sure that referral is happening while they're still in the facility. So when they go home, a meal is coming to them. Not discharge home and hope you get a meal in 10 days. Because we know that's unsustainable, and that often is the reason for someone to bounce back, because they didn't have food. So now we're saying, nope, we're going to make sure you have that food when you get home. You're going to have that personal care attendant when you get home. You're going to have access to whatever, if there's a mental health referral that's needed or whatever thing it might be, it's happening in the facility. So it's kind of like I think of it this way, like hospitals. If you think of hospitals, they often are kind of like navel gazing. They're looking inside their walls at what they need to do when the patient is there, but they haven't necessarily looked out. And so this is saying, no, you need to look out. You need to look out into your community and make sure that discharge is successful. So we're really excited because we're not only seeing in Brattleboro a complete reduction of bounce backs to the emergency department, which is like huge, but also in Bennington, a severe reduction in long stays. People are going home quicker because they've got referrals. They've got access to resources. So it's huge. And what we're going to be doing is building this as a model, a template of how to do complex care discharge planning. And when I say complex care, what I mean is assessing the complexity of needs that a person has. Not that the person's complex. People aren't complex. I mean, I guess we are all complex to some degree, but like assessing the complexity of needs and making sure that they are addressed before discharge. So we're going to be lifting this model up and disseminating this across the state. Fingers crossed, all my fingers and toes are crossed, because this will really revolutionize how discharge planning is happening and building those relationships, again, breaking down silos, building bridges between the facilities and the community partners in their region. So super excited about that. The last three are three contracts that already expired earlier this year, but we gave some funding to VCIL for their home modification and assistive device supports. They did a little bit of peer mentoring with our funding, but that was a little harder to launch. Rutland Mental Health did a beautiful job of sort of augmenting their case management for making sure that folks had that mental health and wellness piece happening in their life. And then Brain Injury Alliance, formerly Association, they did neuro resource facilitation for folks, which is a really important gap filler. There's a traumatic brain injury program through the state, but this program, neuro resource facilitation, is kind of like case management light for folks who don't qualify for that program. So really helping people access the resources that they need. So that's a lot of things. And really, it just comes down to this, what we're doing right this very minute, which is just working with all of you everywhere to really make sure that you understand what resources exist here and what ways to connect to that are. So that's really it. And I can't remember which building I found this on. I think it was in Brattleboro. Everyone deserves to go home. It was a painting I saw on the side of a building. I thought, well, that's exactly it right there. So I will share this out with Lachelle and some links to our forums and all of that. But really just I'm curious, let's have a little bit of a conversation. What do you see in your communities? Are you hearing about the team-based care learning model that's getting launched through the Agency of Human Services? Because we're plugged into that as well. Are you hearing, like, what do you know? How does this program impact the people that you serve, and how can I help you? Don't be shy, I don't bite.
I think it's a really cool program, and I really love some of the anecdotes of the unique ways in which the funds are being used, and sometimes giggle at the like very Vermont or like only in New England, or that some needs based on hobbies that provide individuals with really meaningful quality of life are ideas that are maybe like a little less conventional, but are really enriching to the individuals that are facing some disability or recovering from something in some way, and this um, gives them a little bit independence or a little bit of themselves back after that long road, and so it's really meaningful.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the entire wheel that spins with money follows the person, the hub of the whole thing is person-centered planning. That's the whole philosophy of it. It's federally funded. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think that's a pretty amazing thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, Karen.
it all seems so like logical too, you know. You're like, of course, that's what makes sense to actually put the person in the middle and then make sure that they have what they need to succeed. Um, it sounds like, you shared some really like kind of great updates about the evolution of the program, where you think it's going, and I'm curious for those of us who might need to mull a little bit and see how this comes up in our work too. What the best way to stay connected to any program evolutions or new funding opportunities and things of the like.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to come back anytime, or if you want to bring me to your individual or regional Hunger Council for a chat, happy to do that. Just reach out, put my email in the chat here. Um, yeah, totally happy to connect at any time. I am putting together this summer a really robust presentation about all the contracts And we'll be sort of sharing that out far and wide over the course of the fall. So I can certainly circle back and share that, or at least send it off. And if you want me to present again, I can. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to stay in touch. Just reach out. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions, curiosities?
Really intrigued by, and I know we'll talk about this more, but I'm intrigued by your thoughts on the EBT piece and how that can function in this program. And I'm curious if you have like a dream example you'd like to share. Maybe there are other folks on this call who could lend their expertise to that.
Oh, thanks. That's a great idea. Yeah. So basically, I came into this program a year ago, and I think it was so that was August. I think in October I learned sort of like oh, by the way, there's this extra line item in your budget for supplemental funding for food security and housing and transportation. I said, oh no. Okay, let's do it. But then, I'm also like cleaning house inside, standard operating procedure manuals to write and, lots of internal contract stuff to do. So now, finally, kind of like almost a year later, circling back, and we do have the $15,000 earmarked. It's in the budget, already approved. It's just ready for me. I have to create a program proposal essentially of how we're going to use this funding. And I think it really is just a seed. I think it's something that once we create a program proposal to send to CMS for them to approve, and we start using it and proving that it's helpful, I think we can easily ask for more funding. There are some states that I've talked to that have like $300,000 of supplemental funding just for food security, housing, and transportation. Most states are far larger than Vermont, so it's easy for them to show the need. But I think it's something we can really, if we have a really tactical program around, it's easy, for instance, here would be a dream scenario, Lachelle, that we figure out an amount that makes sense per person, because 15,000 is just not a lot of money, but if we figure out an amount that makes sense per person to preload, and I don't know the mechanism for this, but to preload an EBT card so that literally at the point of discharge, someone is going home with that SNAP card, access to funding that we've preloaded plus whatever amount they're approved for. So I need help figuring out those mechanisms. And if we can figure out, and I'm not sure if this would be the Vermont Food Bank or what exactly, but like the commodity food box kind of delivery at the point of discharge, as well as then figuring out helping, and this part I think is easier, but helping them figure out that transportation access point to whatever their local grocery store is. I think those are the three easiest. Oh, four, making sure they have Meals on Wheels with their local provider. So I think those are the four things in my brain that I've come up with so far as ways to get at food security for someone at discharge. I'm curious if there are other thoughts or things I haven't considered yet. Anybody, I'd be really curious about that. And then if anyone has sort of that insider intel on some of the mechanisms, that would be magical. I think I see you talking, Hannah, but I don't hear you. Sorry for that. Maybe type in the chat. No, sorry.
Okay, I'll chat.
Oh, I hear you now.
Oh, okay. Hi. So I just thought I'd add as an option that I work for the Putney Food Shelf, and I know other food pantries do this, just home deliveries from a food pantry. It's a very hyper local solution, but that's something we could certainly provide.
Lovely. Yeah, that wasn't on my radar. Thank you. That's great. Anything else that we didn't mention yet that you see in your world? Anything you wish you could see? And again, we're thinking about older adults and adults with disabilities, just in this current sector of folks that I can serve. ponder and feel free to send me an email. If something just pops for you later. I'm curious, is there anyone on the call who kind of knows the mechanism for some of these things? Like the EBT SNAP card preload idea, for instance?
Um, well, I'm not sure if you mean make sure that people are enrolled in Three Squares Vermont and
It's two steps. It's that.
yeah,
And then it's also once they're enrolled, then would there be a way for MFP specifically to put a little extra money for that, like restocking of the pantry
right.
idea?
So that I think that is whether that's possible or not is a question for the Economic Services Division of the Department for Children and Families. And that's something that, we at Hunger Free Vermont, we could like facilitate, a meeting,
That'd be
like
awesome.
bring Dale and
Yeah.
DCF together to, explore what might be possible in that like cross-agency world. Because I know even though actually, yeah, you all should have like all those connections built, but a lot of times across agencies and departments, those communications don't always happen on
It's
their own.
true.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that would be amazing. I'll
Mhm.
take you up on that. Thank you. And yes, we should be able to do that interstate. You're right. I don't know who to reach out to over there. Um, Thank you,
Yeah.
Honor. That'd be
We can
awesome.
definitely follow up with you about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know time is clicking by here. I'm curious if there's any sort of related to what I'm describing to you, anything you see in your in your community um, that would be helpful to mention or helpful to put on our radar, or any other way we can support you in looking at some of those barriers that might exist. Okay, no worries. I'm putting you on the spot. Well, if there's nothing else, I really thank you for letting me talk with all of you today. I really appreciate the work you all are doing. I know first, I used to run the Meals on Wheels program in Montpelier, and as I said, was really really grateful to be part of the Hunger Council world for a couple years. And food security, I feel like is just it's like so close to my heart for a wide variety of reasons. As a person, I've been a person who's experienced food insecurity, and so I personally value the need to reduce the stigma around accessing food. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It's just like so simple. And so I'm just so happy that in my new role, I get to kind of play in this world at least a little bit. So thank you so much for letting me join you today. And please reach out anytime with any questions, or if you want me to come and talk to another group or whatever, I'm available. So just let me know. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
presenting. Really appreciate it. It was really informative. And I thank everybody for coming today. I know it was a little last minute. So thank you so much for the great attendance. I will have the recording and the notes and all of the links that Sarah shared out to everyone, hopefully within the next week. And I think we also will have the link to the recording somewhere on our webpage as well, but it will go out through the listserv at least. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your Monday and a great rest of your week. And I hope you're staying safe and dry wherever you may be.
And thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Lachelle, for organizing this for the Hunger Councils and for all of us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.